This is Frank Consella with Crested Butte is Home podcast, and my guest this week is one of Crested Butte's more recognizable figures for over 20 years. You've probably seen him on TV as the owner and the face of CBTV10, our local TV station, and you've probably seen him doing the local weather reports since he is our local weather forecaster. He's a great guy. Enjoy this interview with a longtime local Noah Wight. On the Crested Butte is Home podcast today, my guest is Noah Wight. So tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from to start off with.
I was born son of a couple hippies in Boulder, Colorado in 1971. They moved up to Ward, Colorado. I don't know if you know where that is.
That's extra hippie. That's
hippie. Super hippie. And then pretty soon after, my parents moved back to the East Coast and ended up in Cambridge, raised in southern New Hampshire, and then didn't cross the Mississippi again until I went back to CU.
Okay.
So a little bit of live free or die high altitude style.
So how long were you in Ward, or how old were you when you moved to the East Coast?
I think only like a year. I didn't.
Okay. Okay. So you were in New Hampshire most of your life then, or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. My
Gotcha.
parents bought what we affectionately call Hippie Haven the day my brother was born, so 40 some odd years ago, and they're still tending the hippie soil on 80-acre horse farm that is more just my parents own every two-stroke machine known to God, and I think it's my dad's therapy is to go mow the fields one small mower pass at a time.
Cool. Well, what'd you get into there in New Hampshire? What was it like growing up there?
I grew up in a town smaller than Crested Butte, Francistown, New Hampshire. It sits, Crotchet Mountain is the ski mountain there, which ironically was growing up Allison Gannett, who was a one-time local, former local. Her parents owned the ski mountain, and her younger sister, Kimberly, and I grew up ski racing together.
No way, cool.
So and then Darlene Egelhoff, who and her then husband ran the ski program. Crescent Van Winkle was my ski coach. So
oh, wow. I didn't realize there's
a weird rap that, all of a sudden when I moved here or even came to visit, I ran into those guys out of the blue. And
you didn't even know they were here?
No.
Wow.
No.
Cool.
And then, crazy, sort of a crazy lineup. But so grew up ski racing, grew up on the side of Crotchet Mountain, night skiing style, so very East Coast. Every year was measured by getting to stay at the ski mountain a little 1 hour later, and got into all kinds of trouble. But grew up ski racing, then went to Proctor Academy in Andover, New Hampshire. And then went to St. Lawrence for a year after graduating from that, which was the world's worst decision I ever made. And went from there to Boulder to CU.
Gotcha. Did you go to that academy because of ski racing, or is that part of it? Or?
Yes and no. It was sort of a ski academy light. It was more of a. I was in public high school for freshman and sophomore year, and just was failing it, and didn't have Proctor Academy as a large focus on learning disabilities, and I didn't have an actual diagnosed learning disability, but a big part of their curriculum was focused on hands-on learning, experiential ed. Got to, as part of the tuition, got to spend my senior fall in France. They have a mountain classroom, an ocean classroom where you get to do a lot of traveling. Sort of a kickoff to, training you to want to see what's on the other side of the hill, and hopefully making you strong enough to figure out how to figure it out when you hit that lip a little too hot.
Gotcha. Did that help your grades then and stuff?
Yes, yeah, for sure. Well, and it helped me appreciate learning. I went I grew up in, like I said, a town smaller than Crested Butte. I went to a 3-room schoolhouse for 1st through 5th grade, and then went to a boarding school in Boston for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Went home for 2 years because I was missing ski racing, being on a ski mountain, and then just a weird transition. Wasn't doing it well.
So St. Lawrence, worst decision ever? Why is that?
Because I went there because I wanted to ski, and like I said, I told you I went to France my senior fall, and so when I got back from France, and I burned all my college weekends going to see Dead shows and Max Creek shows, and didn't actually go look at any of the colleges that I applied to. Got into my first choice college, which was CC, but got in as a summer freshman, and I had already finagled a house on Nantucket for the summer for me and my best friend. Rent free, and
can't pass that up.
No, can't pass that up. So instead, I decided that I wanted to ski race, and my best friend was also going to St. Lawrence. St. Lawrence being a Division I team, it probably would have been a reach, but it would have been a ski opportunity. And when we got up there, looked at the schedule and realized that every race was a minimum of 7 hours away, and we ended up living in a dorm room with 8 or 9 pairs of skis hanging from the ceiling, and I don't think we skied once when we were up there, just only home on break. So that would be the bad decision.
Gotcha.
Filled all of our time full of less wholesome activities, which is that's the reason for 1 year at St. Lawrence.
1 year, gotcha. And then you went to CU, and I know you're a CU grad like myself, and you support it more than most. So, like, how'd that go?
It was good. I got into the J school at CU, the journalism school, which was cool. It's top 5% in the country, which was a total reach. It took a whole lot of finagling to make it happen.
Nice.
But I was J school and I had the idea that I wanted to be a war correspondent, wanted to be a shooter, so they didn't have a dedicated photojournalism program, so I was doing double degree fine arts and journalism, which the J school's top 5% in the country, and the fine arts department at Boulder is exactly what you would expect. And the sort of free willy approach of the fine arts to the J school didn't go well.
Okay, so CU, and you're studying journalism, so then what's next?
I basically in the process of doing the fine arts and journalism. I think I was 2.5 years into it. I had met Aline, my now wife, and she was set to graduate in a year, and I realized that if I wanted to pursue the fine arts and journalism, I was at least looking at another 2.5 years.
Okay.
As is typical, about 2.5 years in, I came disillusioned with the entire process and what I was chasing and what the value of the diploma was, and I took a lot of sociology classes when I was at CU and did a lot of feminist study classes because I like to argue.
Okay.
And I realized that with just the electives in sociology that I was taking, I could graduate with a social degree at the same time as Aline, which I decided was worth doing.
Okay.
And so I switched to sociology with an emphasis on experiential ed. And so I was basically, it was an angle of teaching, but it would have been less formal, would have been probably more a boarding school or a, for instance,
kind of like what you did, yeah.
Right, because I wouldn't have an official teaching certificate. But, would be an emphasis on helping kids learn in a different environment than your standard osmosis-based teaching techniques.
All right. So then, did you do that, or did you just come straight here?
Well, Aline and I graduated in '94. We went on the tour de resort to see where we wanted to live, to take a year off.
Okay.
Went up to Jackson, came down here, visited some friends in Aspen, we were gonna head to Tahoe, and came through came through here because we had friends that were here, friends from St. Lawrence, and then Aline's brother had lived here for a while.
Okay.
And we just got high-centered. It was, back in the day in 94 when it was super hard to find housing, and by whatever serendipitous happenstance, we had friends who all of a sudden had a room and a house in Riverbend, and here we landed.
Nice. Nice, and haven't left since, I assume. So that was 94?
Yeah, that was, so our year off turned into a extended stay.
So however long it's been, 25 plus years now. So what'd you do when you got here?
We did all the typical stuff, We came here, like I said, it was theoretically to take a year off, but the idea was moving here for the academy because I thought it would be an opportunity to teach at the academy.
Ah, there you go.
And so we came and sort of sniffed it out and worked for Carol Case Photography and was a smile inspector. My specific spot was Windy Gap up on the mountain, and my shtick was I would get a couple donuts, day-old donuts from the bakery and bring them up and feed camp robbers and get them to sit on kids' hams.
Yeah.
Get the picture, which was my past job, and then I worked at the Majestic Movie Theater when it opened.
Okay.
Pete DiPuzzo was a good friend of mine from college, and
from CU or St.
Yep,
okay,
from CU, and then Jake Jones. We were the first employees of the brand new Majestic Theater. So slinging jujies there, and then and actually that was sort of the segue to how we ended up at the TV station. Was Pete was working for the TV station. He was the computer jockey doing the weather report there. It had just opened up. And I made silver jewelry through college to make money. Was one of my jobs at CU. And so we did a show called Local Artist Profiles. And so we did a bunch of local artists. We did Sean Guerrero while he was making the Knight and the Dragon. And it was, very much sort of just a stream of consciousness. I don't know how well you know Sean Guerrero, but
I don't, but yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Sean putting together 9 million spoons for the dragon and the armor and everything. And we did Sean, we did the Claim Jumper. Because the Discover Channel had just done a show on the Claim Jumper, and it was horrible, and we could do better, and at some point I thought maybe we could work for the Discover Channel. And then who else? We did Alicia Lally, who used to own the Glacier School over there, and then we shot one with Andy Bamberg, and we shot one with Kate Seeley, and neither one of those two ever got made, but the footage is all still in the can.
There's just raw footage there. Really?
Yeah. Well, Andy is for something. One of the tapes ate itself when we were shooting the interviews, and it was like a big chunk of the middle. But we got a bunch of raw Andy Bamberg footage that I got to pull out one of these.
Yeah, that would be cool to bring that back out. Okay, so let's just keep going with CBTV things. So, you own it now. So
I started working for them and Dave Swanwick was the morning talent for doing the weather, and I was just the computer guy. I think I worked there for 6 months, and Robert Uterwick, who owned the business, got a quote-unquote deal he couldn't refuse. He was a PIC programmer, which is a corporate, sort of back-end programming language. He got a job he couldn't refuse and was going to move and offered to sell me the business, which was sort of mildly horrifying reality for a 26-year-old recent college graduate taking a year off.
Right.
I figured that if I managed to run it for a year without running it into the ground, I had a hell of a lot better thing to put on a resume than slinging jujis and taking pictures of kids with birds on their hands.
Right.
And then we moved the office in around the corner in the Majestic to upstairs there, and we had one half, and I had Stephen Murray with MSP moved into the other little corner office in there, and we made ski movies and did TV.
In this episode's Crested Butte Real Estate Minute, I wanted to point out a resource that I have on my website, crestedbutterealestateagent.com, since it is almost ski season. So if you go to that website and you go to the search bar, type in ski in, ski out, and you go to a page that I have for that. Or to make it easier, I will make sure to provide a direct link on the show notes. But anyway, if you go there, there is a Google map with all the neighborhoods and condos that are ski in, ski out. And you can click on those and go to, say, Westwall or Prospect or one of the other ski in, ski out areas and find all the current listings and more information and everything you could possibly need all in one spot. So if you are looking for a ski condo or a ski house, that's the place to go. Let's get back to the interview. I wanted to get back to CBTV, but I wanted to keep rolling. So that was, late 90s, whatever. But I want to move on to an accident that you were in. So can you share that with us and when that happened? And
That happened 2004.
Okay.
I was, as far as being a kid and an adult who led with my head with just about everything, you can only touch the shiny red button so many times without it actually doing something. And the irony of actually, all the stupid things that I did in my life, I basically just kicked a ski on a glorified traverse and went head first into a tree, right at the base between the base of head wall and the high lift. Or not the north face. Uh-huh. Just that little pocket of trees there. There's that little bump line that goes through, and just went left, and my left ski popped off, and I took a hard left and went straight in. Didn't even see it coming, and fractured C6, C7, and damaged my spinal cord.
Gotcha. And were you wearing a helmet back then, or?
I was wearing a helmet. I was wearing a helmet because my best friend from CU, who moved here with me, had an accident, I think, the year before, or even the year before that, and was not wearing a helmet. And I spent, with a whole bunch of friends, spent 3 days in St. Mary's listening to his EKG beep, hoping for some sort of response before his parents had to pull the plug. So
you're wearing a helmet,
learned a lesson the hard way. Yep. My helmet definitely saved my life. There's no question. I have a size 17.5 neck, and I managed to break it in 2 places, and in doing so shattered my helmet and caused enough of friction on it as it slid down the tree to melt the plastic and push it all sideways over to the side. So there's no question that saved me. So
wow,
a lesson learned.
Is that you saw the helmet? Is it up on your mantle?
It's in the garage, but yes, I do have it, and I use it to scare my kids' friends when I catch them without their helmet.
Nice. Huh. Well, all right. So that happens, and then what? Do you remember the whole thing? Do you remember?
Yep, vividly. Well, it was. So my son Cooper had been born 6 months before that, and I had, as a result, I had networked all my offices, and our house in CB South, the office in Gunny, and the office in CB, and I had networked them all so that I could work remotely, so I could be home hanging out with the kid, give Aline some space, and be a part of the process, which is good because when I got hurt, I then ran the business for 4 months out of my hospital room up in Denver while I was rehabbing.
Wow.
Which was good because it gave me something to focus on. Other than the sort of overarching horror of the whole situation.
Yeah.
And, something to know that you had to go back to. But so did that, and luckily, a big part of my business was I was a professional shooter, so obviously that changed, but, also luckily I wore a lot of hats in the business, so there was an opportunity for me to sort of segue from that and concentrate more on other aspects of the business and still keep doing what I was doing and sort of work off the infrastructure that I had spent so long building up. But, and so as a result, again, 25 years, I think this is the 25th year celebration of CBTV. I've only owned it for 23, but, it still continues to be the job.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's a fortunate unfortunate thing that you had the opportunity. I mean, and that was long enough ago. That was pretty early to be able to work remotely.
Yeah.
With that much ease, really.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's fortunate you were able to do that, and like you said, have something to do. And
they had never really quite seen anything like me up there, but I was pretty pissed off and determined. So it was a lesson for them and for me, I think, in the process.
Oh, that's good. Well, so you go through that rehab time, you come back here, and what was that like? Coming back to Crested Butte and
hard and good. I mean, we had already weathered a lot of storms here with Matt dying and other friends dying, and we had a super core group of friends here who helped make it all work. Specifically, Ben Eaton and Murph and Scott Moss all got together and helped get our house dialed and put together. They built me a lift to go. We lived in a house that was had a below decks boat theme, so basically it was a more vertical environment than anything else. And Cooper's bedroom had a 24-inch sailboat door on it, and I am certainly an ass and a half too big for 24 inches. And then it was, on the hill with stairs and everything else. So we weren't really even thinking we were going to be able to come home, but they built us basically Swiss Family Robinson meets Monster Garage lift in order to get through there, and we managed to pull it off and be there for a couple of years before we built the house that we're in now, which is the the forever house, about 10 years too late, or too early rather, but absolutely imperative. This is definitely not a wheelchair friendly environment as far as it goes, so home better be
right.
And it allowed us, we had, my son Briar was born 9 years ago. So it took us about 6 years to get it all together in order to have Briar, but it allowed me to work at home and then help take care of him, and everything's accessible, and an elevator and the full nine. So absolutely imperative as far as that goes. And since my office is downstairs, and then I have an office in Gunnison as well, it just allows me to do everything I need to do with a commute that's to floor number 1.
Right, yeah. And what's, obviously you're a big skier and former racer, so how quickly did you get with Adaptive and start doing...
Well, ironically, I'd been working with Adaptive before I got hurt. I was shooting footage for them, and Chris was a good friend already, Chris Hensley, and so I had been doing some shooting for... I don't know, I guess a couple of times for Adaptive specifically, and then I had spent, about a week shooting the disabled ski team for Discover Channel for something, and, had done a bunch of stuff so with the mono program, so I'd seen a lot of that go, and then Jim Harlan was a friend. I went kicking and screaming, sort of, right. As having been a skier, at my level, C6, 7, when you're up that high, when your level of injury is that high, you don't have any core muscles, you have no abdominals, so, it's really hard to balance, it's hard to initiate a turn, it's hard to do all of those things, and just the little smidge of difference is a lot as far as ability goes.
Sure.
Kirsten Adkins was all over me from the get-go to go ski, and I couldn't imagine not skiing with my boy after, forever wanting, dreaming of the opportunity. So I went out and I went skiing. There was lots of tears in my goggles and suffered for, a year and a half of, hitting the ground hard a lot of times and, being pig-headed and determined, pulled it off until I could ski with my kid, and then, rapidly he blasted right past me. But, we can still get out and ski for a day, which is awesome, as well as with Briar. So, it's skiing's sort of one of those things where it'll spank you hard if you're not fully into it. And I broke my collarbone a couple of years into skiing, and then 2 years ago I busted 4 ribs, and Since the universe has a sense of humor, I broke the 4 ribs that I can feel.
Which is fun.
Yeah, super fun. But, there's really nothing that compares to a day on the ski hill, a little wind in the face and the chance to get out. I mean, like I said, it was a hard transition, but, you stick with it. I'm far too stubborn to quit halfway.
I mean, the good news, gravity sports are, they're adaptable, right? If you'd been a big runner, that would have been a little more difficult maybe to do. So
there's 9 million things that I would love to get back out. My bike was one of my favorite things growing up. All my summers were bike touring camps, so things like that you miss. Got Jake doing reactive adaptations in town, and someday when I can scrape together the duff kits to afford one of his bikes, that'll be something, because, when I first got hurt and pre-Jake, the bikes were specialized for going uphill but sucked coming down, or they were really good for coming down but not good for going up. So, Jake has modified that design and made something that's good for both, which is...
Yeah, they look really cool. I've checked out his website a couple times. They're crazy machines. It's really cool that he's doing that. All right, well, let's go back to CBTV. So, how has that changed in the time you've owned it? It's got to be crazy with all the internet and on-demand and everything else. So
when I bought it, there was a unidirectional microwave signal from Gunnison to Crested Butte, so you couldn't, unless the office was in Gunnison, and had the signal originating there. I was basically just in Crested Butte. So Crested Butte and Mount Crested Butte together. We did all kinds of different things. Always information has been kind of the angle. RSN, which is now Outside Television, the focus has always been that ski movies, mountain bike, your classic adventure porn stuff. And, that was what we were making too. I was making ski movies with Stephen Murray for MSP and mountain bike movies for Freeride, and then did Eric Voke's kayak movie and did Performers. Actually, I listened to Wendy's interview, which was funny. I forgot all about Performers. We did that remake of the
K2 thing,
Barrymore's original, which was pretty cool. But it was promotional, so sort of praying to the corporate god. But, so the difference was that back then, it was mostly just the ski mountain focus. And then, as the internet speeds increased, we could send stuff different directions and just... so went from a system that was run by basically 9 VHS decks working off of what's basically DTMF tones, telephone tones that make deck switch from one to the other and then cut away to an extra deck for inserting commercials, and that required somebody to actually change tapes twice a day.
Physically change a tape,
which is, it's a completely different thing now. It's all computers and everything these days, and then the playback system now lives down in Gunnison and plays up for the full valley, and then we got our broadcast signals, our broadcast licenses, so we broadcast basically from Monarch to the west side of Blue Mesa and up to Mount CB, so you can get us free over the air on the digital signal. And then we're also channel 10 on the cable system. So somewhere along the line managed to sort of untie our horse from just the cable company and spread it out.
Do you have numbers? Like what's cable versus the on-air? Do you know?
On-air you can't really measure because it's anybody who puts up puts up an antenna. But, it's interesting because it's... a lot of the hotels these days are on a satellite-based system. So what we can do is then just pull our over-the-air signal, the OTA signal, and insert it into their, in-house TV system. So we can make sure that we access everybody. So somewhere between that, that's how we have the TVs in the grocery store, the Chamber of Commerce, the Treasury Center. All of those places are just pulling down the over-the-air signal. But for, what we're seeing basically is that with college students and like CB and sort of north end of the valley, a lot of what you see is people that are supplementing whatever streaming service they subscribe to with having that, because I mean there's 22 channels of a free over the air.
Okay.
Channels is all the Denver channels, Discover Channel, and then CBTV. So you can watch football, sports, local news, all of those things in one foul swoop for free. And and then if you're in one of the places that you can't get access to high-speed internet, or it's a low-income or fixed-income household, it's an opportunity to get 22 channels. It's a pretty cool local resource through the MetRack.
Right. It's MetRack. So my condo HOA is through Dish. So you're saying I could contact them and they could still hook it up to the in-house system of the HOA?
Maybe. So you have it's just a single system that feeds.
It's a single system that then goes through the hopper things through Dish, through each condo. It gets our own hopper somehow.
Yes, probably. Usually the way it's set up, so, for instance, Grand Lodge, that's what they do. They pull down a satellite-based system, and then we pull our system down and modulate it into the channel lineup. So, most outfits have the allowance for inserting a local channel like that.
I'll have to check that out.
So, yes, it's entirely possible.
Yeah, because I was bummed when they switched from cable, because, it's like you said, it's always got, like, the outside TV stuff, it's like, especially if, you can just be on, because there's always something, like, pretty good on. I'm not necessarily sitting down and watching it, but just to have, like, something on when I'm
ultimately it depends. The transmission site for town and Mount Crested Butte comes off of Sunlight Ridge. So if you've got line of sight to Sunlight Ridge, you can pull
definitely
it down.
do. So
yeah,
interesting, cool. Well, what's your goal for CBTV going forward? How do you keep rolling with all the changes that keep coming?
We've sort of gone through a bunch of different incarnations. I mean, once upon a time we were doing a live show. We did a live show the last time around was just when it was, the Waltons and the Callaways were sort of nearing the end of their ownership of the mountain, and everybody was griping about this, that, and the other thing. And the newspaper every week was, people taking swats at each other without...
Nothing changes.
Yeah, but it was, it was much more raw, and it was without people putting into perspective that the people that they were batting around were also their neighbors. And, the sort of the lag and the ability of people not to actually face each other in the debate sort of debases the entire production. So we did a live show that, we had all of those different people sitting on a set together talking about things back and forth. And, in 1 hour we could change the paradigm completely with, seeing everybody's point of view and an interaction in the process, which was cool. I'd love to get back there. The TV station has so much potential, but it's also, I've been doing this for an awful long time, and it's sort of lacklusterly for sale. I've gotten a couple offers as far as low balls, and it just doesn't make any sense to take them until it comes in. But I also have other things that I want to do. I want to market the system that I built for the information zones that come up on CBTV. I'm going to market that system that I built can render those wrappers and basically market it to boutique hotels and small resorts as a way to produce their own weather and content and use it as in-house entertainment or in-house advertisement, which
that'd be cool.
Allows me to stay in the valley but do something that's not geographically limited and untethers me from the resort or the cable company who seem to choose to do stupid things at alternating intervals.
Right.
So you're always rebounding or reacting to something.
Yeah. I mean, and even the big guys. I mean, I'm an Avs fan, and I can't watch the Avalanche games right now. I mean, just as a case in point. But
so, I mean, the bottom line, though, is that TV is an interesting beast. It's changing. Delivery and the way people get it is changing so completely. But, we've managed to buck the trend just by being the focus with, local information, working with the Avalanche Center, working with CAIC, with CBAC, working with the all the different gunny trails and all of those guys, keeping that local information. And then we're the only local weather report, because when they homogenized the cable system, now even the local weather on the cable comes from Grand Junction.
Right.
So, all of our weather that you get via apps and everything is just an algorithm on the public reporting station, the METAR site down in Gunnison, and then they just run it through an algorithm, which, doesn't work when you live on the side of the Continental Divide. And I don't suggest you use my weather report for life or death situations, but I can tell you what it's going to do on a given day with pretty good accuracy, and then you can make your big decisions from there.
Yeah, I was going to say you're probably in some ways most visible for being the weather guy, so to speak. So, I mean, do you have a meteorology background, or do you start? Or just all self-learned?
No, I am very much a weatherman, not a meteorologist. And, just 20 years of writing weather reports and doing the weather. And then just, I have good sources. There's lots of good sources out there, and you just have to, sort of know where to cast the net and, take a piece of everyone's and try and figure out how that fits with, our specific location. Obviously, Gunnison and Crested Butte, right where we are on the Continental Divide, everything depends on sort of where the storm split off of, to the west. Are they going north? Are they how they're coming in?
Yeah.
Upslope, that never works out for us, even though, everybody loves to make it sound like it's going to turn into some heyday. It's,
right.
Always that's the root of the donut hole.
I was just going to say, so for someone who isn't familiar with Crested Butte weather, what is the donut hole?
The donut hole is, it's all about the approach, but a big part of, the one scenario that people always identify as the big donut hole is, you see the moisture will wrap around from the south and come it'll upslope on the front range, and that same moisture will work its way back up on the other side of the divide, up the I-70 corridor, and those guys will end up getting hammered. But because of our proximity to the divide and sort of how it all shapes over, it almost never makes it over to us. So we end up stuck in this sort of blue pool in the middle that everybody else is getting snow from Monarch all the way up around to Aspen is still getting snow out of it, and then we miss out on it.
Yeah.
We're in an odd spot as far as all the mountains that surround us, and when it's good, it's good, but when it's complicated, it's also sort of a crapshoot.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So again, for someone who isn't that familiar, what's the best setup for a big snowstorm for the resort specifically?
I'd say kind of the Pineapple Express is always my favorite. But, we haven't seen a true blue Pineapple Express until last year in a couple of years. Just that sort of warm, wet. And it's always about timing. The best winter here is when, obviously if you're going to burn a wish, you want it to come in late so you can ride your bike until whenever. Then you want it to come in and warm, wet, and windy and stack right in so it fills in all the surfaces, and then after that, snow right away. Not these big hollow spots like we're seeing right now where it's sunny and cold. And but you get that warm, wet early, and then if you can just get, this mountain ski's the best when you see that 4 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches, 4 inches, and then throw in a foot, here and there. Yeah. But the best this mountain skis is when you get it good and constant and just keeps coming. Yeah.
Well, let's start to wrap it up a little bit. Crested Butte is home for you, so why do you still choose to make Crested Butte your home?
Because I can't imagine any place else I'd want to raise my kids. I mean, I got, Cooper's 15, Briar's 9, and the two of them, this place is a playground. Yeah. It's, everything that you'd want them to be able to do. I'm living in CB South now with the bus. My kids can get on the bus down here, go up to Mountain Sports, ski for the day. They leave here at 8, get home at 5, and ski the entire day in between, and have a blast and do it. Ride bikes and everything else. I mean, I can't imagine where else I'd be. You know, sometimes you look at it and life would certainly be easier. I mean, every once in a while we go back to Boulder and visit friends, or go to Denver and visit friends. And, but, you know, there's no escapability is the issue. And, you know, everywhere you can go in a day, there's probably 100,000 other people that are looking to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm not all that big into sharing my nature.
There you go. Well, where can people learn more about CBTV?
Our webpage, and I'd love to hear feedback from people too, but our webpage is cbtv.tv. Just remember the .tv part. You know, we try and pull in as many information sources as we can. We're contracted with CDOT to use all their webcams and weather stations. So, you know, really tried to put together a conclusive one spot where everybody can go in and find all the information from whatever the road alerts are for 70, 185, or 285, and 50, whatever the warnings are, chain road restrictions, those kind of things. But then also, you know, in the winter we've got fishing, biking, all the different reports from all the different corners of the valley and that kind of stuff. And then tons of webcams and everything else. So, you know, anything that anybody can think of, let me know. I'd love to put it on there.
It's probably underutilized, actually. When I write up these questions, I flipped on it and I was like, oh wow, there's everything. Like, people are always on Facebook, like, what's the weather on Monarch? And it's right there. You don't even have to go to CDOT because you could look at all the other stuff at the same time. So
that's
cool.
Kind of the aim.
That's the goal. All right. Anything I should have asked, or that you want to just get off your chest or anything?
Anything I want to get off my chest.
Soapbox.
No, it's, you know, I would love to, like I said, with the TV station, it's going to be a process trying to figure out exactly, you know, what the next incarnation is going to be. I would love to see, you know, the return of some of those shows. I'd love to see it as an angle to bridge the communities of CB and Gunny. And, you know, there's this weird up valley, down valley angst, which is always an issue. And I think that, you know, for instance, the hockey teams playing together has been a super good thing, just because it, you know, you see what kids are doing. And I've been looking to try and get the Gunnison video program together with the CB high school video program, and you know, just let kids see a little bit more of each other in the process. And, you know, and then the political issues in town. I mean, God knows we're probably on the cusp of a whole new rash of those kind of issues. I think it would be good to have a forum where you can put people together and, you know, hash it out and knock it around in one foul swoop, so that we don't forget that the person that you're talking to and about is your neighbor rather than...
No, that would be really, you know, with the social media and stuff and all the jabbering that goes on there, it would be cool to get some of those same folks together actually face to face, and having to moderate themselves maybe in a different way and come to some different conclusions perhaps. I don't know.
That, or maybe we just get some boxing gloves.
Right. Figure it out.
When it all goes wrong, we still come out at the end of the day with a result, right?
Yeah. Well, last question, and I forgot to set this one up for you, so hopefully you have something on the tip of your tongue, but who else should I interview?
Wow. Who else should you interview? I mean, running down your list, it's certainly a motley crew. Had a lot of fun listening to it. I know who I would suggest. I would say my friend Ben Eaton.
I heard he did.
You did?
I did.
No way. Oh, jeez. Well, then what about... there's always my brother Evan if you want to rub up against the MSP process, and then there's those guys, but also maybe Jake with his bikes. Yeah, Jake's been on the list actually too. Reactive adaptations. He just fresh dad, 1 year into the process. Oh, cool. Congrats to him. Actually, not even a year. All right. Yeah, it's pretty brand new. But yeah, awesome program. You got certainly no end to the people that you can interview in the process. Yeah, totally. That's the idea. There's a lot of interesting folks around here. So isn't there? Yeah, for sure. So like you said, never ending it. I can do this for a while. So awesome. Well, thanks for sitting down with me, and
See you around. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Crested Butte is Home podcast. You can find all the episodes at crestedbutteshome.com, which also has all types of real estate information for Crested Butte and Gunnison. And of course, your favorite podcast player will have all the Crested Butte is Home episodes as well. I am also on Facebook and Instagram at Crested Butte is Home, so if you want to check that out, please do. And please share this podcast with your friends and family if you think they'd enjoy it. That is always super helpful. I'm Frank Consella, and I will see you again in a couple of weeks. Thanks for listening.